Year 2023, and the future of this young player is so bright, I had to put my shades on. This is the days before Guki became world champion. So, let's see how he played against his fellow countryman Rameshbabu Praggnanandhaa. Tata Steel is known as the Wimbledon of chess. So let's see how these two go out, pound for pound, and who brings it home as India's finest take each other on. We get c4, c5 symmetrical in the English opening, knight f3, knight f6, and knight c3. So this is also known as the four knights, as we can see there. One, two, three, cuatro. All right, we get d4 then, takes in the center, and knight takes e6 is very thematic and standard. And Gukesh goes for a3. The second was continuation in this line, also very popular. Then is e4. E4 is also popular. Knight b to d5, also very Sicilian like here. Trying to hit there on d6. D6 is also often played. Bishop f4 is also quite common here. And no, if you go bishop f4, this does not work, of course, because you can just take this knight. The pawn doesn't work. So if you capture back, you will just end up taking there. Or you first trade queens, even better. King takes, and then you take. Or if you really want to be classy about it, you could castle first. Either or, king to e8, and then you pick up the pawn. But Gukesh then goes for a3, stopping this bishop b4 idea, but also perhaps thinking of going b4 himself. We get bishop to e7 then by Prague, and Gukesh now goes for e4. After e4, then black castles, knight back to f3, and queen to a5. So the idea behind queen to a5, yes, okay, you could argue is maybe to put pressure on the knight, but not entirely. This is very thematic in this anti-Benoni variation, that you bring the queen out and swing it over to the other side. So it's almost like a triangle, right? You're swinging it like that. All right. So after that, we get bishop to d2, and Prague then does swing his queen over to h5. After queen to h5, Gukesh makes a mistake then by going rook to g1. The reason behind rook g1 is quite simple, is to try and thrust this pawn forward down the g file. So what we can see here and what we can deduce if we have to sit down with the position and try to dissect it, is that after 10 moves, well, Prague is castled, and Gukesh has decided he's not going to castle kingside in this game because he has now moved his rook. Instead, he's preparing his ammunition by sliding his rook to g1, and maybe he has ideas of pushing the g4 pawn forward. Maybe it's to start with h3 and g4 to put some pressure on this queen, because the question is asked now, what is your queen doing on h5? Prague? Prague says, well, I'm going to go d5 and try and break open the center to maybe get my light square bishop out. Gukesh says, no problem, I'm going g4 and temporarily sacking a pawn. So look at the times here, the clock times. Both players started with an hour 30, and now both of them are up on the clock, meaning they've gotten more time than what they've started with. This tells you one thing, that they are very much in prep and well prepared. After g4, Prague then takes the pawn and his upper pawn, but now Gukesh gets to take in the center. C takes, E takes, and bishop and knight takes on d5. Of course, taking here, but more risky. Reason why is because you are opening the E file, let alone, not even that, you are opening the bishop to come and attack you on f2. The knight is already looking at f2. And of course, these rook checks are also very annoying, right? The position suddenly opens up that much beautifully for black, and white's king is stuck in the center. Most of white's pieces are on the first rank, and nothing is really developed. In fact, white doesn't have any piece in the opposing half, which is also a good measure to see how your attack is going. If you look at black, on the other hand, a knight is in white's half, the queen is eyeing here, the bishop is eyeing here, the rook has got activity and space. This bishop can come out easily, and the other rook can join the attack as well. So after bishop to c5, then, well, that doesn't happen. We get knight takes on d5, and now bishop to c5. But the difference in this position is this. Look at the small, finer dynamic and details. This e pawn is still on the e file, and that is all the difference, right? Because now, yes, this is an attack on f2, but remember, if this pawn was on d5 and queen to e2 was played well, now this is very much a threat afterwards, right? Right after bishop d7 maybe, or bishop even to f5. Rooks are coming to e8. How are you stopping that in time? In fact, even if you do manage to castle long in that position, there's so much pressure on your king, on your queen, right? After bishop to e2, we get this queen to e2 idea. And now you might think, okay, this f2 pawn does look a bit weak. What if we do this? Well, suddenly you are caught in a nasty trap because knight to f6 is the reason why we went rook to g1 and sacked the g4 pawn. It's because now you cannot take g takes f. Why? Because the rook is keeping you in check. This means that now your knight has forked the king and the queen. Look at that. Look at that beautiful L shape. Look at that. Mwah! Chef's kiss. King h8 and it's late. Good night, sleep tight. Yeah, yeah. So we get this knight to f6 idea. Then if you go knight takes f2. If you go with the bishop on the other hand, okay, fine. You do get to give a check. But now, same story. Queen takes. If you go knight takes, let's say example, it's the same theme. Knight to f6 will check. You still can't take because you're in check. So you must go king to h8. Good night, sleep tight. Knight takes h5. This knight is semi-trapped. Well, it can take on e4. But positionally, you are busted. You go bishop to e3 here, or you could even castle, I guess, if you want to, just to keep it cool like that. And the game continues with white enjoying being a piece up. Black almost has no compensation here. So taking on f2 is not wise. Instead, we get f5 then and knight to f4, attacking the queen, so very direct threat. After this, we get queen to f7, and here you should castle, but now Gukesh plays a move that sort of, you could argue, is a prophylactic move, but this is actually such a bad move that it goes -2 according to engine evaluation, right? All you have to really do now is find f takes e, but Prague doesn't. Let's see what happens if you go f takes e. F takes e, the knight has to jump. This is now the best moves. Knight to g5. Obviously now the queen is attacked again, and it looks bad for black, but after queen to f5, look at this. Look at this. You're giving up this, right? Because let's say you don't, because now your knight is under attack too. Where are you going with the knight? Let's say you go knight to h3. Not good at all, because now I'm breaking in. Look at this. Those knights look like robbers, thieves in the night, man. Where are you going? Where are you going? You go to d1? Well, you're just locking yourself away. Knight to f3, king to e2. You can just resign. This bishop's going to e6 and coming to c4. There's not much you can do. So let's say a bishop to e6. Let's say just a sample line, you go rook here. Well, look here, mate into bishop there. Knight is the only move you can even take with a pawn. Guys, just look at that. Have you ever seen a checkmate, a setup like that? Both the minor pieces just farming there, having a great time. In fact, this checkmate is possible without the queen. The queen is just there on a world tour saying, thank you to my loyal servants for delivering such great service. Bye. That doesn't happen though. So yeah, I mean it is Gookie after all, but I'm just showing the danger of this position, right? So you'd give up the piece, you'd give up your rook for your opponent's knight. You could take, of course, but then you really have nothing to play for here, right? I mean, at least with the queen, you might be dreaming of some counterplay with king h8 and maybe your knight swinging over, but still it takes here and rook to f5 is just the skewer on the knight on g5 and the queen on c5. So you'd go knight to d5. Eventually, you're picking up this knight, right? I mean, you could even take. No, you can't. What am I doing? Yeah, you cannot do that. Come on, guys. Now these shades are starting to blind me. You go bishop to d7 to prepare this take, of course, right? Then you go h3 and queen to h5. Okay, yes. The engine is saying go bishop a2 just to keep the queen running. But eventually, okay, it says you can even keep that up. You would do something like this, right? Yeah, yeah. And then the game just continues with a check. All right. But enough with all those funny engine evaluations. We just go back to our position. Instead of this f takes e, Prague goes queen e7, plundering back. And this gives Gukesh all the time to thrust the pawn forward. We get e5. Knight c takes e5. And here, Gukesh, instead of taking back the knight, he just focuses and prioritizes what? Development and rapid play, which he does. Alongside castles, the rook is about to enter on d file. Bishop to d6 and bishop to c3. Double hitting that knight on e5. Prague is feeling the heat here. Look at the clock. 30 minutes for him, 52 minutes for Gukesh. What's going to happen? Queen takes f3, bishop to e6. Prague playing it precisely, but is it a little too late? Maybe not, because now h3 swings the game back in Prague's or back in level favor. But now Prague blunders back for final time here, and now it seems like there's no going back. He should have perhaps just taken this knight, because this knight is so ominous here. Takes, and the knight will eventually drop back. You can play this position out, right? I mean, there's no real direct attack immediately. Of course, rook e1, you could just, if you really wanted to, I guess, go here. Oh no, look at this. Look at this tactic here. Rook takes, and bishop there. It's over, right? Because the queen is then forked and pinned to the king on g8. So, yeah, maybe then just rook there. The same story, right? If you defend this way, it's the same theme, right? Rook takes, queen takes, and bishop to c4. Where's your queen going? Can't move nowhere because it's in line with the king here. So, rook to f7 would be fine. I wonder if you could do this. Also not working because it's the same theme. The reason why rook f7 works is because it breaks that pin. So here, I guess if you did this now, not as good because here the queen can go here and you do that, right? Oh, the attack is on g2. So rook to g3, g6. I think eventually you just end up giving like the exchange back, right? Yeah. But okay, the game continued in a different fashion. h3, bishop to e5, knight takes e6, queen takes e6, and now h takes g, bishop takes c3, and b takes c. So here we see at the end of it all, after 24 moves, Gukesh emerges up a full bishop. And we've now already seen how dangerous this bishop is in some lines, yeah? So let's go back now. We get the rook to d8 and g takes f. All right. Prague trades off a pair of rooks, and now queen takes, and queen to a2. So yeah, Prague is trying to just capture on a3, maybe try to give some checks, hoping for perpetual. But Gukesh goes for bishop d3, also saying, look, man, you can take on a3, and if you take on a3, I'm going to run my king to d2, and you won't have any checks with your rook because my bishop will be covering it. Okay, we get rook to e8 then, and rook to g4. After rook to g4, queen takes a3 with check, king to d2, and the exact thing we were talking about. Gukesh placing this bishop is like a brick, right? It's like a house, just defending from any attacks there, right? King to d2, queen to b2 with check, queen to c2, almost setting up a battery there. And now, obviously, if you trade queens, this is just over. You up a full piece. We get queen to b6 then, and queen to a2 with check, king to h8, and rook to d4. Gukesh playing it so precisely. Right, we get queen to h6, king to c2, king to h2, queen to h2, and rook to f7. Yeah, now the rook is under a lot of pressure. It cannot leave the 8th rank, otherwise you just get mated. So we get queen takes on f2 with check. Gukesh has no problem. I'm running to a place where I can't be checked anymore. That's queen to b3, rook to g8. Bishop to c4, double attacking on rook. The rook slides to b8. Prague trying to defend, very resilient. But queen to e7, also just trying to go for this rook d8 idea, of course. Rook takes and queen takes with checkmate. We get h5, Prague trying to break the mate. But now we get queen to g5, and the idea is to just take here and then threaten mate that way. So Prague defends that with queen to f3. But now Gukesh just goes for rook to h4. After queen to d1 check and king to b2, it was in this position on move 40 that Rameshbabu Praggnanandhaa resigned the game. And the reason why is because black has no more checks and this rook to h5 is coming and mate will be unstoppable. In fact, if you did something like this, well, it's just Borden's mate. Similar with queen to h6, you kind of go to g8. So that's the other problem. And let's say you tried anything else. There's nothing much you can really do here. Can't even go here because, I mean, everything is just winning here, right? I mean, yeah, you can take like that. If you go queen here, for instance, you just take with the queen if you really wanted to because you can't even take back, but you just do this. And the mate is also forced because you cannot go to g8 since the bishop is so important there in breaking it. So this bishop ends up being the star piece in the later half of the game. Gukesh really worked well with his pieces, and the game could have went a very different direction if Prague earlier on with this whole knight business here. Uh, let's go back a bit. if he dropped back with his knight earlier on, but he stretched it a little too long and ended up collapsing. I think maybe he thought he could maybe have some perpetual ideas here, with the rook maybe coming, but yeah. Yeah, Gukesh shows us why, he'd be a worthy contender for the world champion. This was 2023. The future is still very bright for young Gukesh. That's why the shades stay on. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please do consider hitting that like, comment, and subbing. It would mean a lot for the channel. And yeah, do suggest if you have any games I can look over or what we can do to improve our content for you guys. Because we do this for you and to grow the chess community. So yeah, take care guys, and I hope to see you very soon for the next video. Bye.